Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Money Making Mamas podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Nancy Wallace Lobbs, and I'm joined by my beautiful daughter Kelsey as a co host. So, Kelsey, what do you have planned today for the podcast?
Well, you're in the hot seat.
Oh,
So,
okay, I did feel a little warm today. I don't think I was having a hot flash by any means. So,
well, real quick, why don't we recap and how was your New Year's?
it was very wonderful. It was chill, right? Because we just only 5% of the population actually go out on New Year's Eve,
I believe that.
and so we're of course in the 95%. So we stayed home, and I am happy to say that I actually made it to midnight and watched the ball drop in for New York, and then also watched the celebration here in Dallas. It was really very chill, nice, but it was a nice way to ring in the 2025. So excited for 2025.
Yeah, I am too. I feel good about this year.
Yeah, and it's just, it sounds nice on your lips, like 2025.
Yeah.
And I think, a lot of people struggled in 2024. So
I think a lot of people struggled for a while. So I think a majority of people are like, yeah, 2025 is a good one.
Yes.
I did not. Okay, so did you ever, because I know growing up, we didn't really do any like traditions like eating grapes under the tables or black eyed peas.
No.
Did you know about any of those? Because I genuinely did not know about any traditions, so I have a story to tell.
I went to a party when I was a little older, and
Younger.
Yes, I mean older as from a child. Because when I was a kid, our tradition was to we set up fireworks, but if it was too cold to go outside, because I grew up in the Midwest, we took pots and pans and just banged them as loud as we could around the house.
At midnight?
At midnight. That's what we did, the pots and pans with a spoon or whatnot. And then one year I went to a party, I think I was like in college or something, and they got under the table. I don't remember eating grapes. I remember the black-eyed peas. And I was like, okay, what? It was actually a pool table. There's a lot of drinking going on, so I wasn't really sure what, what the purpose was. But what's your story about that?
So we had some friends. So are very fortunate and live in a neighborhood we've met a lot of our good friends. So we've kind of just done a neighborhood hangout this is the second time. And it's just kind of nice because we can just walk to our friend's house and, don't have to worry about whatever. So we had a couple of people from our neighborhood over and our friends, and we asked each one to bring a snack to share. So like everybody was like, I'm gonna bring this, that, blah, blah, blah. And I was talking with Zach and I was like, hey, what do you want to make or whatever? And all of our friends know this, but like our go-to is nacho bar. It's so easy, like it's amazing, but we also host a lot, so we didn't want to serve that one more time. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna make, so we were browsing some recipes and I saw this cowboy caviar. Have you ever heard of it?
I've not.
Okay, it is so good, but it's made with black-eyed peas. And I had no idea the tradition behind black-eyed peas and like supposedly supposed to eat them and bring you good luck.
Do you think we should have a podcast on recipes and tradition?
Ooh, family traditions would be fun.
Family traditions with the food and holidays. Okay, anyway, so what happened with the...
Well, no, so I was talking to our friend, and they were like, yeah, I love that you have... And again, still have no idea of the... Like, made it, whatever. Had no idea of the tradition. He was like, I love that you guys are serving black-eyed peas. And I was like, well, yeah, that's what the recipe called for, or whatever. And he's like, well, yeah, but it's New Year's. And I was like... Okay, and so that was the first time I
ate there. But it's good luck, right?
It is, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, I didn't know anything about eating black-eyed peas, and I still made that recipe.
We've imparted some info to our listeners about black-eyed peas, or the listeners are going, okay, everybody knows that.
Well, I'd be curious what New Year, because then I'd be curious what other New Year's traditions people are doing. So if you have some, leave them in the comments.
Yeah, that'd be good to know. Yeah,
that'd be fun.
And let's see, what's the next holiday coming up?
Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. So I also, in anticipation, what are some favorite things besides getting flowers and chocolates and jewelry and going out to dinner? Are there other things that people do? So we'll, as we get closer to that. So,
yeah.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you had a good New Year's. Do you have any, you could call them New Year's resolutions, goals, or just like check-ins? Like, hey, I mean, maybe need to do better about this.
Yes, I do like resolutions. Not because you break them, but so a couple things for me this year is just really focusing on my health.
Yeah.
And my family. And taken a step back about what is important in life. And I
Right.
think that this comes with being older. And then also with our business, we have a couple, cool things coming up this year that we'll be talking about. But
Yeah.
I really just, I think I just have a very joyful outlook for the new year, and I'm gonna incorporate no.
Oh, good. Like more boundaries.
Yeah, I think everybody needs that, and that's so you kind of
Not babysitting opportunities, right?
I'm
Just kidding. I'm
Because
kidding.
remember, we talked about this, didn't we? About if you're a grandparent out there, I just saw a
According to
thing.
studies.
According to studies, the more
What studies these are, I don't know, but
but we're gonna take them for their word. The more you babysit or have your grandchildren in your life, the longer and healthier your life will be. So I know I always get a lot of joy out of that, and I know we're gonna. So anyway, we're all over the board today.
Yeah, exactly. Well, okay. Well, let's jump into it. So I kind of want to just talk about you and how you became a money-making mama. And so all that starts with you becoming a mama. So why don't you tell a little bit of your story, I guess, because I don't think a lot of listeners know, coming from.
Yeah, I'm the oldest of 4, and so from a very young age I started working. I mean, I was always driven to make money. We kind of had a chaotic upbringing. Sometimes we had a lot of money and sometimes we had no money.
Mm-hmm.
So but we never talked about it, and I think that's the thing about money. People don't really talk about it. There's a lot of shame and guilt, and it took me a long time, to figure out. But I was always driven. Like, I started babysitting, and it cracks me up when I think about, I used to babysit for 50 cents an hour. And my very first job, I was about, I think 13, 14, somewhere like that. And remember, I grew up in Kansas, so, you could work before the legal age. But we did this. This was, besides babysitting, my official job. I don't even know what they call it or if they even have this anymore. So I'll kind of do the description if one of the listeners knows what this was called or can relate to it. But in Kansas, they have a lot of cornfields.
Yeah.
And so they have hybrid corn, and so they hired us young gals, and we would go and walk the fields and pluck out, I don't even know, the husk or something of the middle of it so that they wouldn't pollinate. And cornfields are generally about, I don't know, half a mile long, maybe not quite that long. I mean, it seemed like long. And so, so I probably didn't have my work ethic in place at the time. It was a horrible job. It was hot and
how old
sweaty.
were you again?
I was probably only maybe I want to say somewhere between 12 and 14. I don't even remember. That's how long, because it was so traumatic. And I did get fired on that job. I we were messing around, and we thought we'd get a tan while we were out there.
Gosh.
We would wear our bathing suit tops. And of course, the corn husk, the leaves will just cut you up.
Yeah.
Super muddy. So we wear jeans, and the mud would be up to your knees. If you got in trouble, you got sent back to the bus, because we had to go at 4:30 in the morning out to the fields. And oh my gosh, terrible job. And I've had retail jobs. I didn't really like that. I was not a retail person. So I always lean towards being the boss. I'm a control freak. And so and probably one of my most important jobs for my career started as I was a programs coordinator for a Section 8 program in Johnson County, Kansas. So I basically established it was a county program, and we were federally funded. And so it was myself, and I had a boss. And in the beginning, it was just us two. So I created a waiting list. So for Section 8 housing, if anybody doesn't know what that is it was a rent assistance program for low-income families. So that's kind of how I didn't know anything again about real estate or anything, but I had that, I was kind of managing
kind of growing
that.
in the back.
So we grew that, and I worked there 5 years, and then ended up moving. So that was in Kansas City. And then and the cool thing about Section 8 is it replaced public housing. So public housing is kind of conducive to keeping people in poverty. And Section 8 allows people to take a voucher or certificate and go find a regular house or an apartment to rent where they have more opportunities. It's a great program. And then from there, went to Phoenix, and I answered a blind. Now this is back in the day when you could actually find jobs from the newspaper. I think there was internet, but and I answered a blind ad as a field manager. I had no idea what that was. And it turned out to be, I worked for the second largest blood bank in the country at the time, United Blood Services. And it was like a customer service rep. Like I would go out to businesses and the university there, Arizona State University, and coordinate blood drives. So I was like, okay.
So pause really quick.
Yes.
Where am I where am I in this?
You're not here yet.
Not here yet. Okay.
You're not here
so
yet.
How long? Okay.
Yeah.
Because you were doing blood banks when
Yeah, so I worked for the blood bank
for a while.
A long time, yeah.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
so pause when you get to when I come into the picture.
Okay, so you came into the picture in let's see, probably about 3 years after I started working for the blood bank, 2 or 3 years.
And what position did you start out as again?
So I was they called it a field rep. So you
Got
would
it.
go
Oh yeah.
okay. And then I made manager. Okay, so I was a manager at the time you came on.
Okay.
And so I managed about, 12 to 15 reps that had the whole Phoenix, Luke Air Force Base, Tucson area. I mean, we went all over
Right.
the state of Arizona. And we were responsible for, I can't remember how many, hospitals providing blood and that kind of thing. And I actually worked there so when you came along, of course, unfortunately, I did get a divorce shortly after you were born, and so I was a single mom, and I had, so 2 things that were working in my favor. One, I had established myself at the job, so I had, people relied on me, they knew I was responsible or whatnot, and I was fortunate. This was like the day, way before the days you could work at home. I could take you to the office, because now I have inherited the call center of the blood bank. And so I was able to incorporate being a single mom with my job, and I was just fortunate to have an employer that allowed that, right? They really worked with me.
Well, that's good. So being a single mom, being a manager at a corporate position, what was kind of the challenges that you faced?
So I think the stress, you know, and balancing, because even though it was blood banking, they did have financial goals they had to meet, so I was responsible, and then I oversaw a staff of probably 50-60 people.
Oh wow.
In the call center. Of course, it ran like 7 days a week, and all of that. So I think that one of my gifts that I have is I'm very organized. Very, very organized. So I think the struggle that I had was, doing the problem solving. So like if I had issues with, you in terms of like, okay, you're sick.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a support system, family support system.
Because really quick, you're divorced. I'm mainly with you majority of the time, and all your family is in Kansas.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And at the time, not very many of my friends had kids. So it was a challenging time. I lost, just to give the listeners an idea of how much stress I was under, I lost 75 pounds in 3 months.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that's crazy.
And I was not on Ozempic or weight loss drugs or whatever. I was just running on caffeine.
Oh my gosh.
I wasn't eating. I was probably the most unhealthy. And when I look back on that time, and I remember one of my, what I was saying about this company is one of the directors of the corporate office saw me in the hall one day. And of course, I'm thinking I look good because I weighed a lot. And I'm thinking I look good. He pulled me in his office and he's like,
hey, you know what? Whatever.
And
works.
I didn't tell anybody I was getting divorced. So I was holding all that in, and he goes, what's going on? And I was like, oh, everything's great. And I was kind of that way. I was like, because I didn't want people to think I was weak or all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, and he goes, well, you look really haggard.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, okay then. So I kind of had to stop. And I did break down and just, and I kind of, then I had to learn how to lean on people because that was not something I was used to doing.
Right. That's hard for sure. That's, so what's one piece of single moms who maybe feel the same and they're overwhelmed and stressed that you would give them?
So I think one, don't be so hard on yourself. Don't be so critical. So my big thing was I felt like people would think something was wrong with me. Why did your husband leave? You had a 2-month-old baby. Basically, we got a divorce right after you were born. And so I had a lot of like, oh my gosh, people are like thinking I'm terrible,
Right.
And then 2, how to keep up a good face in front of other people. Because I really saw it as I took a lot of the blame. I had a lot of internal guilt. I didn't have support from my family.
Yeah.
Because they were all like, I was raised Catholic, and not that we were, stout going to church kind of, but that whole, guilt kind of thing.
When were you kind of one of the first to get, like,
I was
divorced in your family
in my
realm?
immediate family and my cousins and all of that. So,
and that has to be hard.
Yeah, everybody just, even if they had a bad marriage, they just stayed in it.
Yeah.
So, we can talk about this now. I mean, it was really hard back then.
Right.
And I didn't have, I talked about I didn't have friends that, had kids. But really, when you are married and then you get a divorce and you have friends that are married, that whole dynamic changes.
Yeah, I
People,
bet.
I think, see you differently, or maybe it was in my mind. So I would say that just emotionally, I was probably a mess, and I didn't seek out. I just took it on too much, and it wasn't until I started kind of letting my guard down and starting talking to people. I got into counseling to help me learn to balance. That it was,
That's
and it
good.
was okay.
Yeah.
I was going to be okay, and that you were going to be okay.
Yeah, definitely. So how do you think that moment, that pivotal moment, shaped who you are today?
Well, a couple things happened too in that whole time frame. So I had, in a 3-year period, I lost my best friend to suicide. I got a divorce, and my grandparents were killed by a drunk driver, and my dad died of cancer, all within a 3-year period. And so, usually one of those, like people say, change you. So when I came out of that, at the other end of that 3 years, I was a completely different person. Like the people that knew me before and then after. And I think the biggest change was, they always say God doesn't give you more than you can handle. So he gave me a lot.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I could handle it, but I think what happened after I got through all of it is I was still a control freak, but not to the degree I had been. And I was able to, things happened in my life where I met people. I ended up being a volunteer for hospice because I had so much grief and tragedy that I had overcome it and kind of had a different way of looking at life, and that made me want to give back more.
I don't think I've ever, I knew that you did it for a little bit, but how was it volunteering for
So it was actually
hospice care? Because that was very comforting.
Yeah, I took you with me. Yeah,
how old was I?
You were like 2.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and a lot of people, it's hard to talk about the end of your life, right? Our mortality, it's scary.
And had your dad already passed away?
Yes,
okay.
And the reason that I turned to hospice to be a volunteer was because they had helped our family so much. They're a wonderful organization, and if you're going through that, they really have people that can help you deal with all the stages of grief and acceptance and all of that. But one of the things I learned through the hospice training and then actually working with patients is that people, when they're ill, choose when they're going to leave. And I have so many stories to talk about, but one of the stories that really still stays with me is there was a man, because they would talk about regret, right? Like things in your life. So he was in a nursing home, and he had an accident. He had lost both of his legs. His eyesight was failing. And so my job for him was to write letters and read letters from his, he had lost connection with his son and daughter. And so now they're like in their 40s, 50s. And so he had recently reconnected with them when I came on the scene, and so my job was to write letters for him and then also read letters. Now, he was able to meet them and talk with them before he actually passed away, but when I brought him, I would bring you in your little stroller, and he would just be, and he said, what his regret was is that he didn't spend more time with his children. There were stories of like one family I worked with, the wife was, she was about to pass away, and the husband was by her side just all the time. Well, he went, he wanted to be there when she passed over, and he went out to smoke a cigarette, and he came back and she had gone.
Oh no.
But she wanted to go. So, because they say, like, if you know someone that's in a coma, they can hear you. And so, my own story of my dad, next to having you was probably his passing was the most beautiful moment of my life. And that was because when he passed, he had been a drinker and there's so many stories about us calling the priest at the last minute, and he paid Father Andy to come and
Oh my god.
and then to come and give him last rites, and that happened about, I don't know, half a dozen times.
Oh
so
my
when it was
gosh.
finally time for him to go, it was just our immediate family, and he looked up, and his face, he had jaundice, he had
Yeah.
cancer, liver cancer, and his face was jaundiced, and he was wrinkled. Well, he looked up, and we told him it was okay for him to go. We'd take care of Mom and whatever. His face became so soft and angelic almost. I mean, it was the most amazing thing. I mean, I think about it, I get chills today thinking about it. And he opened his eyes. He'd been in a coma, like semi-comatose. He opened his eyes, looked up, closed his eyes, took his last breath.
Oh wow.
So what did he see?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
if you're a
crazy.
religious person, spiritual person, he felt, and he looked comforted. He was not afraid, because he was somebody that was afraid of dying.
Oh,
and
wow.
he was not afraid.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was very moving, So if you ever, I mean, I know we're talking kind of about a morbid subject, but the thing is that those kinds of things made me who I am today.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like they make you, I don't know, because going through, I mean, obviously Grandpa passed away, but I think I was too young for that to, it's not like losing a parent. And so I haven't experienced that. When I think you talk about death and the end of your life, like I've always felt that you feel confident about it. Like you don't feel, like for me it's a scary topic. I don't want to talk about it, like all this stuff, but for whenever you bring it up, it's not like this scary thing.
Well, I think it's because, I mean, it's all about what you believe, right? And how you live your life.
Yeah.
And do you have regrets? And if you have regrets, could you, I mean, you can only do, we make mistakes, right? Forgiveness sometimes is hard to do, and we can forgive, but we don't have to forget.
Right.
And staying angry just doesn't really, I don't think it lends to having a good life.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
And I think you can share your story and be still positive and be, like, yay. So, yeah.
Definitely.
I think it just makes you who, and I think when you experience tragedy, like my friend that, from suicide was, like, oh my gosh, I just talked to her like the day before, and it's like, so there's a whole lot of things that go on with that.
Right.
And then my grandparents, from a drunk driver, like a month later, and I mean, it was just a lot.
Yeah, I bet.
So I'm, I still have my hair. Didn't go gray then.
yeah, definitely. All right, well, we'll switch back to being a mom, and that was really good about just kind of those pivotal moments. So going through your corporate life, I know you were blood bank manager for a while, and then were you at United Blood Services, right?
Yes.
Were you there when you decided to quit the job and move, and when you guys wanted to move to Texas?
Actually, what happened was I left the blood bank to do blood bank management consulting.
Oh, I remember that. Is that when you traveled to London and all that?
I traveled to a lot of blood banks in the U.S., Canada, did a stint in England, London, and I did that for, I think, a couple years, so... and that was really cool because I got to go and, meet all these different people. The hard part was that, I did travel back then. And people would say, well, why'd you do that? Well, the opportunity was there for me. And so sometimes women have to make those choices, right?
So had you ever been, okay, so you grew up in Kansas, Phoenix. Had you ever traveled outside the United States?
No.
Okay, so that's exciting. So it also brought that opportunity for you too.
Yes.
So even though, yes, it's hard to, leave, I'm sure it was not easy for you to leave me, but that Brian was watching me and all that, and safe environment. But then also too, you still have to do stuff for yourself at the end of the day. Like,
right.
It's
and that
hard
was such
for
an
sure.
Opportunity, because when I tell people that, like, whoa, and I think, that your love of travel, because we used to go, whenever I could, you always came with.
Yeah.
Because we went to Vancouver.
Yeah.
And, we took a lot of trips where we traveled. But I think it helped me be a better traveler.
Yeah.
And not be all nervous and
realize there's more out in the world too.
Yes. And meeting other people and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I think that also, kind of gives you a different perspective about being a manager, being an entrepreneur,
Right.
being a mom, being
Mm-hmm.
a woman,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah. So traveling, that was hard being away, but it was good opportunity.
Yes.
And then, so at what point so you're doing blood bank consulting. So at what point are you guys like, because if our listeners listened last week, then they'll know that up and moved, the real estate market was really, really good. You guys made a decision, hey, let's sell our house, move to Texas. I was devastated. I was in elementary school. It was a really good opportunity for you guys. Two different sides of the story, but we're here. So at what point in your career had you guys made that decision?
So really, it kind of came overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, when I say overnight, like I'm saying like a month or two, because we said, oh, we'd been living in our house for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years, and we were just like, hey, let's find a new house and let's move. And, so we just kind of started looking around. And I think because I did the management consulting, so that was really my foray into working for myself. And it gave me a certain confidence that you don't get when you're working for somebody else.
Right.
So I was able to call my own hours, and I could, even though I traveled, I was able to say, well, I'm only going to travel, I'm going to leave Monday and I'm going to come back Friday, and I'm going to do it every other week. So it wasn't like I was gone. I was able to. And I also negotiated, if I was going to do that and be away from my daughter and husband, then I negotiated a really good salary.
Yep.
So the ball was in my court because I had skills that people were looking for. And then that's why I did it. So back to, I think when we said, oh, hey, let's move. I mean, who would think, oh, let's just quit our jobs?
Yeah.
But I think the reason I was able to say that and convince Brian, because he wasn't convinced.
Well, and also too, just another part of this as well, Brian has 4 kids.
Yes.
And so that was a very tough decision, I'm sure, for you guys as well.
And they were older, so they were teenagers, and they were kind of doing their own thing. But really, it came down to confidence.
Yeah.
And having faith in ourselves. And for me personally, because I knew that I had a skill that people wanted.
Right.
And that I could go to work, I could move, and I could live anywhere and do that job. Brian's been in IT for 100 years, it seems like, and so that's a very lucrative industry as well.
Right.
And so he also has skills that he can apply and live anywhere. So when you realize that you have something that other people want, you have a good work ethic, and you have confidence, and you believe in yourself, you can. I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we did. We saw the opportunity. I said, hey, we can sell our house, make a ton of tax-free money. That's what happens. The tax-free. Yes, the family situation, we had to look at, okay, Kelsey, and as we explained last time, the school system kind of drove we were going to wait a year, but then when we found out the school year for junior high actually started the year that you would have been a 6th grader, we said, oh, we got to go now.
Yeah.
So we made that decision on that. And then the stepchildren, since they were at that time like 16, 17, almost 18.
Right.
They
were doing their own thing.
They were doing their own thing.
And they had their friends, and the opportunity was to come out.
Yes, and they had the opportunity to visit and things like that. So it really, when it all came down to it, it just made sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. So at this point, because we'll jump into it, but at this point, besides the Section 8 housing, was this kind of the first real estate deal that you were like, oh, hey, like maybe something sparked in your brain a little bit?
It did. And
were you aware of the real estate world at this point? Or
No.
Okay.
No, I wasn't. I mean, I watched, they had those fix and flip shows,
right.
HGTV and that kind of thing, but I never really thought I could do that.
Yeah.
Because what did I know? I didn't know anything about real estate. And really, it was about the greed and how much money you can make.
That's fair.
But then, when we got to Phoenix.
Well, yeah. Oh, Phoenix.
Yeah. Or when we got to Dallas.
Yeah, because that was going to be I'm sure we're on the same page here, but talk about that because you quit the blood consulting.
I did. I quit the blood consulting. I said, hey, first time in my life I didn't have to go to work right away. I still had to go to work. And but I was able to take some time about what I want to do, so I looked around and, I really had always been interested in real estate investing. And that's when I said, okay, well, no perfect time then to start. And I want to emphasize, I didn't know anything about it. Yes, we sold our house, But that was just because we were like, dang, look how much money you can make. I was not thinking, oh, okay, well, you have this much money, you can do blah, blah. No, I was just thinking, I had no idea if we were going to go into real estate investing. I just knew we could make a lot of money selling our house at the time. So, but then after I thought about it, and actually I did try to get on with the blood bank here, but they didn't offer me the same kind of position. I had eventually been a director at United Blood Services. So when I came here, I felt like I had a lot of skills.
Right.
And, so, and I, after 6 months of talking, and then they said, oh, we'll offer you a field rep. Well, that's kind of where I started at. So I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, but no thanks.
Already been at the top.
So, and I had kind of been mulling about what I was going to do. And a friend of mine, actually, they have a Sam Moon here. And for those of you who don't know, Sam Moon has like knockoff purses and jewelries and everything. So we were going to start a purse business where we went to Sam Moon and we bought purses at a discount. And then we were going to go to like, I don't even know where, but then we were going to sell them online, at a market price. And I think, retail's not for me.
Right.
So, I said to Brian, I think I want to do this real estate investing. I didn't know what that even meant.
Yeah.
And so that's when I actually met up with the lady who had then become my partner for 10 years. And I bought she taught me how to buy my first investment property.
Well, and really quick, how did you guys, because she's such a pivotal person in your life, how did you meet? How did you find her?
So the realtor that sold us our first house here in the DFW area, I just said, hey, I'm looking for somebody that is into real estate investing. And she happened to know her.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And anyway, I called her up, or I tried to, because she's so busy, and she didn't want to give me the time of day. And she actually had her assistant give me the book. It's the Gary Keller Real Estate and Millionaire Investor, for those of you. It's the blue book. She said, read this, come back and see me. And so I read that book in like a day and a half. And I was like, yeah, I'm ready. So she goes, okay. So she sold me my first house, and it was hilarious because now I know what her little thing was, because she said to me, if you don't buy this house, I will. She had no allegiance to me at that time, right? She just wanted to make that sale. So I did. I bought the house, and we were so nervous. I was like, oh my gosh, we don't know what we're doing. And then it turned out that I wanted to learn more about because it was a rental.
Yeah.
And I wanted to learn. And we bought that house for about $110,000. We had 20% down. But back in the day, if anybody's as old as I am, there was Countrywide home loans. And Countrywide, so lending, and what I've learned since then in real estate investing, it's not just about how to find a deal, it's about how to find the money, right? And how to buy the properties. So back then, Countrywide home loans, which was kind of pivotal in the whole housing crash of 2008, they were giving away, if you could breathe, you could get a loan with them. That's how it worked. Now, I was smart enough to know that I didn't want to borrow 100% of the proceeds of the house, so we did put the 20% down because we got a better rate, yada yada. And then I started renting it, and I remember I had two candidates for the house, and I said to Karen, I was like, okay, well, who should I rent to? I had a realtor and a guy that him and his wife had like a cleaning service, and she said, don't rent to the realtor. Okay, I'm a realtor, so I can say this. And I rented to the family, and they stayed in that house for 11 years. They were my only tenant.
And didn't they end up buying it from you?
They didn't buy it, but what happened was we got to know their daughters. They grew up in that house. And it was my first rental, so I made some first rental mistakes. Like I kept the rent too low for too long. So by the time the 11 years rolled around, the property taxes were outrageous, the insurance, and it was no longer cash positive. So I had two choices. One, he couldn't afford the rent because, I learned how to do long-term tenants, which is great, except that, you qualify them to go in, like, let's say the rent at the time was like $1,000. Well, by the time the 11 years passed, those houses, that same house would rent for $2,500. So his income didn't keep up with how much to charge him. So when I told him that I wanted him to move out or he could pay higher rent, well, then we had a lot of deferred maintenance. So then we had to make a decision. Okay, are we going to put the money into this house? We're going to sell it. We ended up selling it because it had gone from $110,000 to over $350,000.
That's awesome
in value. So
that's good.
Yeah.
So you worked with Karen for 10 years. How many properties? Because you learned a lot from her.
I did.
She
Yeah,
was
we managed
she was
over
amazing.
100 properties. I learned property management from
Mm-hmm.
her. We bought properties like one or two almost every year. I was with her. We've refinanced.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did learn a lot from her.
And she was, I mean, so she was amazing too. Because for me, she was kind of like my first job a little
Oh
bit
yeah.
because well, maybe not my first job, but a little side job because I'd help you guys go put lock boxes on houses or signs on the houses, or sometimes I go with you through a walkthrough. And um so yeah, that was kind of nice, just driving around little DFW. I remember, yeah, going to certain places that are really built up now.
Yes.
So that's good. So 10 years. Unfortunately, do you want to tell that side of?
So unfortunately, she passed away unexpectedly,
Mm-hmm.
and it was devastating because she was not only somebody I worked with.
She was a close friend.
She was a close friend, and we talked 2-3 times a day. We used to go to dinner. It was devastating.
Mm-hmm.
And here's a big lesson
Mm-hmm.
that I learned. So we were partners. However, we always talked about we would do it. We would. That we should paper it up,
Mm-hmm.
and we never did.
Mm-hmm.
We weren't formally, like, we didn't have an LLC. We didn't, you know what I mean? We just ran it. We were word of mouth. We didn't have a website. We were very informal business.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when she passed away, yeah, that ended all.
That was
of
a
that.
lesson.
It was a huge, hard lesson. So I was devastated that she passed. I was grieving her passing. But I also lost significant income, like almost overnight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that was probably so.
I had to pivot. I didn't even.
Yeah.
It took probably about a year for me to actually pivot into what am I going to do next? What am I, because I still was very active with property management. I spoke. I did a lot of presentations. But then I kind of just threw myself into full time. I mean, I'd been an investor, but really that's all I did then after that. I just invested. I helped other people get invested, and I really threw myself into creative finance. Not just creative financing, but when I found a property, because, eventually you run out of money.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you buy them? So I really kind of just delved into asking why, and how can you, and why not, and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what can you talk about? Maybe not a lot of people know. Can you give a little dummy version of what creative financing means?
So, I mean, it could be different things, but so the thing that probably I'm most famous for is getting different people together with a self-directed IRA, and they become private money lenders. So I did an article for Forbes, Forbes.com, you can read on, where I took myself and 5 other people. We all had self-directed IRAs, and we had an investor that needed to borrow $136,000 to purchase this property. He had the money for the rehab. And I put the deal together, and in the article I lay out how it works and how each person. So it's not like everybody pools their money. We write up the deed of trust, and it's everybody has first lien position. And there was a joint venture agreement that went along with that. And then there's like seller financing. So I might find a property, and I have the seller carry the note for me, and then there's owner. So when you talk about creative, it's just really, it's not your traditional, like, okay, I'm gonna found a house, I'm gonna go to the bank, I have 20% down. It's how can you purchase real estate. I've done it with I've never done no money down, like some people talk about that. I personally have not done that. However, I have bought properties with $100.
Okay, yeah, which we'll talk about that. We'll save that one.
We're gonna save that one because it's a little bit more involved. So.
Well, and I think that's a really good one to come back to. But so you mentioned that you wrote for Forbes,
yes,
and whatnot. So at this point, what was the kind of shift for obviously Karen passing away and not having that partnership, and then you have to figure out. So you move on to creative financing, but this is also kind of the shift where you are a real estate investor, but you're slowly going towards coaching and mentorship. So what was did you just write articles to Forbes and hope that they get submitted? Did you have people reach out to you? How did that, how did all that start to evolve?
So I'd always wanted to write a book, right? And I mean, from like I'm just, write things or whatnot. And so my first published best-selling book was Winning Deals in Heels. And then I do a lot of public speaking. I'm somebody that I have been asked by different organizations to come and talk about these different ways of investing. Short-term rentals is kind of a hot topic right now. So then what happens is people will reach out to me. So in the beginning, I used to go, yeah, okay, I'll help you. And then I was like, okay, I think you need to start paying for that. Because again, what I realized is I have a skill
Yes.
that people want to know.
Mm-hmm.
They want to, and I do give a lot of stuff for free.
Mm-hmm.
But if people wanted me to help them one-on-one, then that's where that, the coaching became,
Yeah.
And so we've kind of gone over the years, we've done like one-on-one coaching, which I do like, but I also like group coaching.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be rolling out like a subscription kind of service where you get like the one-on-one, but
Yeah.
in more of a group setting. Plus, I think people do better when they're a community
Yes.
of investors, right? Especially, I like working with women that have they want to find that second income.
Mm-hmm.
They just want to, I don't know, contribute to their household financially. Real estate investing has been really good to me, and it's been good for my family.
Mm-hmm.
So I just feel very passionate about sharing all of that.
Yeah, which I do think it would be great to do a whole episode just dedicated to, kind of what we do and more in that, and how we teach other women and moms and family members how to contribute to their families financially. I would love to just kind of dive deeper into, it'll be, a little bit about real estate, but you'll learn some stuff and kind of more about us. So I want to do a whole episode to that. So at this point, you've gone from investor to getting asked to speak to now, hey, no, wait, I'm going to kind of choose where I want to be. So kind of talk about some of your highlights of your real estate career, and we'll kind of wrap it up after that.
Okay, so I think some of my highlight was buying my first property.
Yeah.
Overcoming that fear, and that I can remember still standing in front of that house with that pit in my stomach going, oh my gosh, am I doing the right thing? I think writing my book was, because it was a collaborative effort with 9 other investors, and what was really
investor women.
And what was really cool about it is that we have the same theme in the book about where we all needed someone to help us. Almost all of us had a mentor, coach along the way. And the other thing I like about Winning Deals and Heels is it gives back.
Mm-hmm.
So you can purchase it on Amazon, Winning Deals and Heels, but part of the proceeds also support one of my favorite nonprofits here, Hope's Door, which helps families heal from domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the biggest thing of my career. And then getting asked to speak at the Texas conference this last year.
Texas Realtors
and then,
Conference.
Yes, the Texas Realtors Conference, and a possibility of speaking at the national level this in 2025.
It's very
so
exciting.
I would be very happy. And then also I do have a little shout out. Quest Trust Company, who they've sold since then, but I was a frequent speaker for their panels, but I also was asked to speak at their March Madness, and I went up against some like Eddie Speed and some other very well-known investor guys. And the first year that I went up against Eddie, I took 4th, but the last time I took 1st. So
there you go. I love it. All right, so kind of ending on you're thriving in your real estate investing, you're teaching others, you've become, I graduated high school, married, all that stuff. Cut to Nana life.
Love Nana life.
Nana life.
Love
so
Nana life.
What's the best part about being a Nana?
Oh my gosh, being present with my little babies.
Yeah.
But just and watching them grow and be little sponges. So I read this thing about when you have grandchildren, it's like having your own children over again. You can see them, but you have slower time. You're able to really absorb what they're doing. Like, as a single mom, managing all of that,
time
I didn't have time for all the, I didn't notice all the small things.
Right.
So yesterday, or a couple of days ago, I guess it was my granddaughter, Toby, and she's going to be 2 in April, and she had a baby doll, and she was looking at the baby doll, and she was, poking at its eyes, but she was exploring the baby doll. And then she has her favorite Dory book, and she's, she was sitting on the floor pointing at the pictures, and she's, like she's reading it. So it's really cool to see them progress
Mm-hmm.
into these little people. I just love it.
Yeah. So how would you say what is different from being a mom?
For Nana,
Yeah.
you just have more time.
Yeah.
You're and you know what? The wisdom
Mm-hmm.
that you have about slowing down, you know that you don't have to get this other task done, that you have the time, because now you know that you have limited time.
Mm-hmm.
So you want to take the time.
So this one you'll have to
It's hard.
maybe just dig deep a little bit.
All right, here we go.
What is one thing you love to do with Bear or Toby or both of them, your grandkids, that reminds you of being a kid again?
Oh, you know what? I don't really have to think too hard. I love going to the playground with them.
Yeah.
And getting on the swing. Okay, I can't really get on the swing.
Yeah.
I can't really climb or do the gymnastics. But the other thing is, one of the things that we used to do when you were a kid is go to the park and feed the ducks.
Yeah.
You know, so I always have frozen bread in my my freezer. So when they come over, because we live close to a park, and we just walk over there, and I think just seeing the joy on their face.
They love it.
They love it.
They love it. Well, that was exciting. That was good.
Well, yeah,
that was all my
you.
questions.
I know,
but
it kind of sort of made me tear up a little bit. You know,
I love
it's like
it.
What do you want to say? Going down memory lane a little bit.
Well, we joked about this last time off camera, but it is kind of nice. Just mother to daughter, like this will be forever out there. And, you know, I know that there's things like out there that you can, you know, do for your parents that kind of figure out more about their lives. But I think I learned some pieces about you that I didn't know today, so I really appreciated it.
Right.
So last 2 episodes we did the quick fire questions just to wrap it up. So that's what I want to end on. I'm going to do that as a theme. We're going to stick with that.
Okay.
All right. What's your dream vacation spot?
Oh, so many. I'm just going to say Aruba because it came right to my head.
Aruba? Okay. Aruba.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Favorite way to unwind after a long day?
You know, I got to say, I got to pull in my wine. Get my
Love it.
wine.
Your Pinot Grigio. And one thing you'd tell someone who's scared to start their real estate journey?
Call me.
There you go. I love it. Just simple as that. Call me. 100%. And then
I'll talk you down off the ledge. That's what I do.
I love it. Call me. That's a good one. I had one more and it just completely slipped out of my... Oh, what is... Because we teased this last episode. What is the fun fact about you that you want to share with people?
Oh my gosh, I don't know. Okay, I'm just going to say it. I have watched Days of Our Lives since I was a kid.
Well, you got to be a little more. If we're going to put it out there, you got to put it out there.
Okay, well, let's just say that I remember they've done the Marlena, you know, getting kidnapped by Stefano. Like when they, because now I have a hard time watching it because it's not the same. All my favorite characters are dying off, and, you know, John just died, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and of course Doug, he died, but he was like 90, I think 98 or something like that. But I've been watching Days of Our Lives. That's probably my guilty pleasure.
That you've been watching for what, like?
Yeah, we can't really say because, you know, a long time. If anybody I remember when John Black had black hair.
But like, I'm trying to think of the people, like, I only knew what Days of Our Lives was because of you.
Yeah. There's probably not, I mean, they probably got to be in a certain decade.
All right, Mom. Well, it was good talking, and I'm so happy that we got to sit down and just do this again. Appreciate all the listeners out there. What is coming up for Money Making Mama's podcast? Okay, well, the next podcast is going to put Kelsey in the hot seat. I get to ask the questions, and
it's funny
because I feel like I don't have as much like history and like wise information to give.
You probably have some. I mean, you did travel abroad, so we might talk about that a little bit. But we also have to be careful because, you know, people know you.
Exactly. Well, again, appreciate so much for those listening, those watching. Any feedback you have for us, any topics you want to hear, whether it's about being a mom, real estate investing, questions you have for us, we'd love to hear them. Follow us on all the socials at money_making_mamas without a G. Mom, any last final words?
Just subscribe, you know, and we would like to hear your feedback.
Yeah.
So, you know, just what for future podcasts. We have a bunch of things lined up that have to do with, family and community and safety and real estate and being a business entrepreneur. And, I think we're going to talk about business plans.
Yep.
So,
All right, Mom.
Kelsey.
Love you.
Love
Talk
you
later.
too. Talk later.
Bye.